you have. Why I'm going to do this and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to speak a lot about games and around moments which you discover when you're playing a games, because this is actually one of the most modern ways and the oldest ways of learning. When people are born in playing games, they learn how to run, how to behave, and how to be better. My field of personal interest and research is leadership. I have been studying books for years as professor and to teach the essence of what is leadership. And this essence I will share with you is related to the psychology, of course, as it was mentioned already. My field of activities is Central Europe, but also I was studying in London, where I did my bachelor's in law, my MBA. I then learned pedagogy at the best business schools in France and also in Spain. And over the last few years, 5-6 years, I have grown into the East, and I have been very often in Kazakhstan, which I like very much, and I would like to have an impact on your country and the competitiveness of your region. So I know Kazakh culture pretty well. What is the new normal? It is clear that now that there is an aftermath of the virus, our times will become very, very different than what they used to be before the crisis. There will be elements which will be restructured completely. The global economy will change. And I think, and I'm convinced that this new economy will be even more guided by good leadership principles. The good leadership principles which I am teaching and proposing are written by a world-famous Professor Mihai, Csikszentmihalyi, and his book is called Flow, which is in Russian Patok. You can buy it in any bookshop in anywhere in Kazakhstan, in Kerian shopping mall or in Mega, anywhere. The second book, which is more relevant for business people and is described, it also has the title Good Business, and it also has the same title in Russian. Now, how is the economy going to be different in the future? I will give you 4 major directions, which are based on McKinsey's recent recommendations. First of all, we have to realize that unfortunately, the distance between countries and products and services is back. You can read this linked article by Harvard Business Review, big guru and also dean, on which he wrote that the distance still matters, because many people in the new era, in the new 2000s, thought distance is completely disappearing. People can fly around the globe, and only a few industries are still affected by distance. One of these industries, which is affected by this, is actually the global educational business. So teaching and education is something which is affecting the global business. This will remain in future. And we can see this already happening yesterday and today, that the oil price has such a big difference in America, in Europe, and in other places on the earth. So negative prices occurred only regionally because of this distance factor. The second trend which is going to emerge with the new economy is that there will be new segments in which I guess the oil and petroleum industry is also affected on the long run, but it's a contact-free economy. So first industries which will be affected is telemedicine, electronic commerce, and automation. So if you're not in these industries, unfortunately, or not investing in these industries, it might not be that good news for you at this stage. The third element, which is interesting, according to the recommendation of McKinsey, is that in the future there will be even more government intervention in the economy. The societies and the states will redefine what is the public health ecosystem, how much money and how much rules do we need in order to have this at the global level and at national level. So far it was left very much to economists, saving the health systems costs by reducing the flexibility, and now a new rise of new regulations will come about. This will lead to the next new normal. new normal means, life after the crisis. The fourth element is the most important for me and for you here now. It speaks about something which is pretty unusual in leadership context, to speak of resilience, efficiency, yes, from economic perspective. But what is leadership efficiency? Well, resiliency is actually the aspect that you can absorb a shock mentally in your group, in your team, in your people behavior. You can survive on the long run, and it is not enough just for an individual. The whole business model, the whole company has to be changed and to be turned around. So the question for all of you and for me here is, how does the factors which are going to create competitive advantage change over the years that they are coming now? What are the factors of creating a competitive advantage? It is capital. Most of you working in heavy industries think that the traditional economic capital, like natural resources, tangible assets like plants, equipment, but also brands and data, are the driving forces of an economy. This is true to a certain extent, but having plants and economic capital is not enough to create growth. Therefore, many companies in the 80s and 90s in the IT industry in the Silicon Valley have discovered that their actually competitive advantage comes from human capital, the people they have. That's why also in places like AIFC or other research places and leadership development is often called human capital center. But human capital is basically only knowledge related to processes and related to facts and internal and external knowledge, which is per se not enough. What is also needed in the new economy and entrepreneurial business is to have your right social contacts. Imagine you're a very clever person and researcher, and you don't have access to the research connections outside of your university or of your city. If financial capital is accumulated and the knowledge in one city, but there are no tradespeople, that's not good enough. So social capital is also needed, networks, alliances, and contacts. However, in the year 2000 and following years, Luthans and others, you can find the link here, have also discovered and started to speak about the importance of the thing called psychological capital. Psychological capital, I think, is the most important for us to have. It actually brings in the people's energy from inside, right? So it is the energy you have from inside, so that you are actually resilient and optimistic and have the efficacy and the hope to go every day to work and to turn it around. Now, how is this psychology of this positive capital created? Well, this is what I'm going to show you now that you understood why we need to speak about psychology and capital, because in addition to the other sources, we think increasingly this will make the big difference. How then can you create human capital and positive capital? We have a solution for that, and you have also the same solution now. You can go through the same steps yourself. You will be understanding now what is the flow as a mental phenomenon. I will show you also how this flow can be used in a leadership context. And then we're going to show you a few examples on how you can discover your own leadership skills and how you can enhance it with modern technology. So first step is to understand this flow mental phenomenon, and you will now discover the basics, because I think with this flow theory, with this flow knowledge, you can create better organizations, and organizations which are going to be more competitive. The foundation of this knowledge, after my speech, you can read easily and comfortably in Russian in the book called Flow Patok. It is available not amongst the Kazakhstan classics, but the world business literature in the psychological section. Okay? So This book is written by a professor whose name is maybe difficult to pronounce. It is, let me switch back to where I am. Just a second. I got lost in the different screens. Yes. Where am I? Here I am. Okay. In English, this part of the word face is called cheek, like chicken, but cheek. And then it's sent, like the email is sent away. You type the email and then it's sent, and then it's me, and then it's hi. So to pronounce his name actually is a very easy way. It is called cheek sent me hi. This person has founded creativity studies, and he discovered why are people different in efficiency and where they find the energy. And this energy comes from the moment of being in this flow moment in Patok. But you need to find out with me now, what is this Patok? Where does it come from? First of all, Patok is a slang word. It actually, scientifically, it's called optimal experience. It's an experience during the day when you do an activity in which you feel optimal. You feel very happy and you think that the activity is meaningful. So happiness has, to many people, two different types of faces. And let's see one face. One type of people would say, this man is actually not happy. This is not the face of happiness. And much more, this is how happiness looks like. And actually, I will debate and I will show you that this first person doing this activity, if you would ask him, and right now stop him, do you enjoy what you do? And he will say, oh, it's super difficult, but it makes sense because this work will create my own future. This is what I have learned, and I'm doing it better and better every moment. However, if you sit in this type of happiness, you have eaten the ice cream and you have seen it, the next day you start to wonder what will happen on the third day. But certainly after a few days, sitting on the same bench and just watching and doing nothing, you will get bored. It is not actually lasting happiness, but this person the next day might go out and continue his activities. Therefore, Csikszentmihalyi drew a very important difference between two types of happiness. And the one which I'm going to speak about is also happening in the Kokpar, where people are developing their resilience, their resistance to pain and to difficulties, and they find the best way of resolving the fight against the other team. A very simple rule to get this goat across the border. But in this moment of high energy, of working high, which is difficult to do, people say, oh, this was great. This was the optimal experience, and not just hanging there and doing nothing. So the definition of flow, you can see amongst the slides, it is related to a mental state. It is linked to, it is related to an activity. Okay, I will look at the questions as we come to an end. I will give you the introduction first. So flow is positive because of the outcomes, but it's not easy because you have to concentrate on it and you are actually involved in an activity. So now you have understood, this is the first benefit for you. You now should know what flow mental phenomenon is and what the basics for that is. The basics are positive energy coming from a work in which is difficult, but you get better and better. Now, why is this important to be in flow and to create moments of flow for a company in leadership challenges? How does this come about? Let us see this next book. Csikszentmihalyi discovered this flow happening during the Second World War in Italy, when there were refugees from the Red Army with his parents who were very rich and diplomats, and they lost everything, and everybody was in the gray zone, completely depressed. Everybody was waiting for the war to be over, and they can come back to Hungary to opera and balls and have the richness. But in fact, they had to stay in Rome. And as a child, he observed that some people around him started to start a restaurant, a Hungarian restaurant in Rome. And as a child, he was wondering, why are some people colorful and some people stay in the gray zone? So this is a very important slide for you, because you have to ask, are you a leader, like this person on the screen, who has the internal brain, the energy, the DNA, or the knowledge on how to turn the gray life into a colorful life? Because this is creativity, this is meaningful, this is beauty, this is where you're human, and this is passivity and just waiting for the money to come and for the help to come. And as a leader, you need to find out what makes this person be so energized. What could you learn for becoming a different leader? In fact, we know from research now that flow is a great resource. Flow is actually very, very helpful for various reasons. You can see here on the screen for companies, because people, when they are motivated from inside, they enjoy the activities, the work, because the leader has made it possible for them, or because they're leaders who are in flow, then these positive functions come about. If they don't come about, then you have people, your employees, going home to work like these two dogs. What do these two dogs talk about when they go home for work? Dogs are normally meant to jump around, look at the enemy, look after the sheep, look after the animals, maybe go hunting and bring back whatever was shot. But in a bad company, these dogs are punished and they have to sit and always stay and heal. This is the order the boss is giving them. Not be yourself, innovate, be yourself, think. So as a leader, you have to discover the DNA and the habits of your dogs or your team members, so to say, in analogy, so that you can make the best out of them. And these dogs and all dogs are different, so you need to have a better way of discovering what they should do than the classic way of giving orders. That's not going to be motivating for them. So how can you improve others' flow at work? How can we do this? The first rule is that you have to sit down and think a little bit about the goal. If you want to get into flow, you need to see what you want to achieve. A painter has a vision about the painting, a musician or an artist about the piece of art. But for my activities, when I make a presentation like for now, for you, I have a vision of what I want to present. How will be the thoughts? But for leadership, it is important that you discuss the goal with your employees, and the goal should be their goal, not your goal. They will never really be interested in doing things which is not in their own interest and their own possibilities to achieve. So setting a goal is the first type of input into finding flow at work. The second one is that the work should give you immediate feedback. When a musician plays the instrument, she can hear the sound immediately. When an artist paints something, they can see the effects of the pencil and the brush immediately. But in management or in your work, the feedback comes much later. In my case, I ask students after each session and after each course to tell me what they have liked. I watch their eyes during the class and I watch the questions they ask. And this gives me immediate feedback that I'm on a good track and I do my work well. The next element which you need in order to get into flow is two different elements. You need to find a balance between what you can do, which is your skill, and the challenge. Imagine I would ask you to do that, to stand between two flowers and make a big acrobatic movement. For me, this would not be possible. I would completely fail, not only physically, but I don't have the skill of moving that artfully. I have not exercised it. And maybe for some other people, it is so routine, so standard that they're going for a higher and higher level of challenge. So in psychology, Csikszentmihalyi discovered this a little bit complicated looking, but very simple relationship. He discovered for the first time with statistical methods that there's a relationship between what you can do, your skills, which is on this axis, and on the other hand, what you have to do. And it's really simple at extremes, because if you have high skills and there's nothing to do in the blue zone, you will feel bored. You have high skills and nothing to do is the definition of boredom. There can be a situation when your boss or you yourself ask something to do and you get anxiety or resistance to change. This is because the challenge seems very high for you subjectively and you're not aware of what skills you have. There's a black zone. I've covered it here a little bit. It's really here at the bottom end. It is apathy, apathia. It is when you have given up the hope that you have no skills and nothing can stimulate you. So if somebody's in apathy at your work, or you're in apathy, you need external help, and you must stop doing that work and go doing something completely different to discover your skills. But most people are on this borderline, on this on between little bit bored or a little bit anxiety, little bit apathy. But here the white zone is actually the flow zone. It is balance between skills and challenges, and it is a dynamic zone because if you are doing something which you enjoy, after a while you lose your interest, your flow, because your skills get better, and the same level of a bit of activities gets simply too boring. So you increase this activity, and hopefully it's not too difficult so that you can stay in zone. But if you jump too high, then you are again in the green zone. So this art is conceptually very easy to discover, but I need to tell you that you need to exercise this, you need to learn this, and this is what I can do, and this is what we do. So now you know the knowledge, now you know what you need to exercise, but I have also suggestions that you should actually practice this with feedback. So flow does not come about simply by paying people money. Flow and happiness at work is not an organization where they actually organize parties, company events, and they do barbecues or excursions. Flow and creativity comes about much more difficult by giving a goal, giving feedback to the employees or to yourself, and finding the balance between challenge and skills. So this is, to summarize, how flow can be useful in a leadership situation, because it has many different advantages. And we have now talked about this, that it can become a management principle. Now I need to come back again to this question, but how can you learn about this? If you have understood it, how can you share this knowledge with others? And how can you build up the psychological capital? Well, first answer is read a book, and then you will have the knowledge, okay? But unfortunately, reading books, most people don't want to do that anymore. And therefore, something dynamic is needed in order to build up this knowledge in your team and in yourself deeper than just my seminar. But one opportunity would be to read the book. The second one is how you get positive psychological capital. The answer, again, is very simple from science. You need to get into flow moments, activities which you enjoy, because then you build up this capital which makes you feel positive and hopeful and efficacy and resilient. Anybody is successful because they use the energy from the past which they created in flow. So this is the quick answer, but the difficult answer is, well, how can you actually apply this in your daily practice? How can you apply this flow theory, the book, or to real business challenges, and therefore develop your leadership skills also? Well, you can get a coach, you can get your self-observation, but in a safe mode, it's super difficult. Safe mode means what happens if you make mistakes or you're not very sure about how to build up your future leadership skills for the flow. And here we go into conceptually a different world now. I would like to show you the pedagogy, the aspects of how this is possible. How can you, in a safe mode, develop leadership skills so that you get prepared, not only in theory, but also in the real world, in the real practice. And this category of new activities, which people have developed for that, is called serious gaming. It is different from training exercises, which HR companies have. It is different from edutainment applications, for example, like an online learning. It is different from a simulation game because there are three elements which need to be linked in the field of serious gaming. So it is almost like a video game, which you see your children sometimes playing, or I see my son, but most adults love that too. And they play, but it is serious because it has something you're learning about the world and about the theory. So therefore, the first element of a good serious game is what will you learn? You can learn, for example, routines in how to extinguish fire. You can learn routines in how to use a breathalyzer or medical equipment. So these types of serious games are developed in different segments, also for the oil industry, I'm sure. In our case, the learning which we want to convey is the learning around the flow theory and the leadership theory. The second element which makes a serious game is the gamification aspect. It should be fun. So in this game which we propose, you should have a competition amongst the participants. It could be possible to experiment. It should be possible to have jokes in the story, because it's not about real life fully. It is actually also a game. And in a game, you learn a lot by being able to take a risk, and you see immediately the impact of your decisions. So fast feedback is important. And third element of a good serious game, it is digital. That's a simulation, so that you can use this knowledge, the simulation aspects online everywhere. So the one which we have, for example, is putting you into a game where you go to a wine company in California. And in this Californian wine company, suddenly you are a new person, like an avatar. And it's a real movie in which you have to manage people, and you are the general manager of a company where people are not so very professional, but there are conflicts between the individuals. So for example, in a setting which we would offer, or we can offer, is very general, because there's somebody who wants to push the volume, the sales lady. But the volume is always, especially in a wine, at a trade-off for quality. So the chief winemaker and the lady who wants to sell a lot, they have already antagonistic setup in any company. Think of your company. Who are the people who want to sell lots of tickets, lots of products, and who say, yes, but we do need quality, we need minimum standards. And then in between is the production manager who says, you two are arguing against each other, please leave me out and make up your mind, and then let me know what we should produce. And then there are people who belong to the family. Some people are younger people, they have great ideas, but they have no voice yet. Some older lady who want to help everybody, but they are not caring so much about the business aspects, more the feelings. And then there are people who are the owners, and they are having ideas about what is a good business, but you have to create your own reality in this virtual reality on how to lead people. So I came now to the third point. You've seen that what a serious game is, what the criteria are, and this is actually a tool how you can learn to lead, but you can learn this also, this development, without serious games if you're clever and just read books and you feel happy about that. Now the fourth one is again something you can take away from the theory and apply in your work tomorrow. How can you improve your own flow at your own work? How can you do that? How can you become a hero? All these different heroes you see in these American movies, or in your childhood stories, or you have in the mythology of the different nations and countries, they are their different characters. And how are they different? Well, they are going for different types of fights. Some people are going for clever fights, again others for fast fights, again others for strong fights. So this is the reason that they are using different opportunities to take on different challenges. And if the challenge is very high and the skill is very high, then they can actually perceive, they can not perceive, but they can prevail, they can win, because they are using the best of their skills at the high level of challenge. So they are in flow. So as a leader, you can get into flow if you take on higher level of challenges. But the problem is that most people do not know really what skills they have. I constantly see MBA students, master students, executives who tell me what skills they have, and they write down things like, I can word type, I can have a driving license, I'm a good team player. Oh, team player. I can good communication. I say, okay, but how many percentage is your communication? 50%, 20%? What do you mean by percent? What do you mean by team players score? Well, the fact is that most people whom I meet don't know about their leadership skills. They have never measured it. They speak about this because they want to have this skill, or they're being told by others, but we don't know, they don't know, compared to others who are around them, how they are performing on a certain skill. Therefore, it would be important to measure the skill level, because if they know what skills they are high, then they should use challenges in accordance with the skill to find this balance and to find their flow, and then they could actually improve their own flow at work. So they can only become heroes if they actually know which is the particular measured and real leadership skill. There are many different companies and logics on how to put skills together. Some people are asking employers, like, what skills do your employees need? And they always report from year to year different types of skills which they just invent, or they just measured from the world on the market. Again, other companies have skill sets which are deducted from a theory, from a prospect, something which they propose. In our case, the 29 skills I'm going to show you are deducted by this professor, Cheek sent me high, because these were the skills he observed in his research from top leaders, top managers. And they are 29 leadership skills which you can check. So homework for you could be that after my presentation, you go to the slides and you check out which are the 6 strongest skills you really have, and try to observe it at your work. Ask for employees, do I have these skills? Where do I use this? And if you feel very confident about the strengths, you go into leadership situations where you challenge yourself by applying it more and more. Don't think about the skills which are low for you, because whatever is low will not make you happy. It's not the source of happiness. Happiness and meaningful work comes when you do something which you are good at. Therefore, you need to measure it. We can measure it. You can find your own ways of measuring. You don't have to come through us. But without measuring your skills objectively and unbiasedly, it will be your own fantasies of what skills you have. And if you have just a fantasy about your skills level, then you don't know what challenge you should actually choose, and therefore the flow channel will not come about for you. I hope it makes sense. So it is possible to measure it and to see, for example, like this on a screen, the different scores. So this person, for example, is extremely good at active listening, 82%, and the global average of other people who were measured have 66%. So she should look for a job where active listening, like coaching, leading teams, would be good for her, because she's very good at listening. She's also a logical thinker, analytical skills. Assertiveness is very high. So she can tell, even for men, they're right or wrong, and what she wants and how to go about. But again, the essence for you to take away is, what are your skills, which are the most important for you, and there are certain 4 which we think are most important for creating flow in others. But again, to overcome, to be resilient, as we have said at the beginning, here I told you resilience and efficiency is going to be important for the future. You can only become resilient if you develop flow and your psychological capital. And one way of developing your own moments of enjoying your activities is by being in situations in which you apply your skills. But you need to know which are your skills. Without that, it will not work. Now, last dimension, you need to discover and finding your own flow at work. So this was the essence of it. To summarize, what is the most important? Competitive advantage of companies comes about from capital, but the notion of capital since Marx is not just the traditional economic capital like oil fields or machines, equipment, even patents or money, but it is actually the knowledge of the people. It is not just the knowledge of the people and the skills which have been trained in engineering schools, for example, but it's actually the recombination of these skills in human networks, in relationships, into contacts and friendships. But even that is not enough, because people in the next day have to get up and go back and fight and enjoy and change the world from gray into colorful. And this they can do when they have psychological capital. This psychological capital is developed in moments of flow, and this results then in the employees or the managers to have this energy for these 4 dimensions, and you can read about this in this linked article. The question then is, if you all know about this, how can you develop this? One way is to read further and to make your own experiments, but the other one is what we just have outlined. The second summary point is that there are benefits of flow promoting leadership, because all these benefits come about at the observed companies because the employees like to work there. They don't go home like these dogs complaining always about what they must do, but they find opportunities to develop themselves. And a good owner of the dogs, a good leader of these dogs, of the team, would create a work environment in which these dogs can do exactly what they're the best. One opportunity for this is to develop it through a serious game. You now know what would be the criteria for choosing serious games in general, and there are many. In these games, you can actually exercise finding the balance in the story between the 2 extremes by taking decisions, and in your video game, you will get a result on how often your employees were in the flow zone based on your decisions. But also you get a report about your own leadership profile, your own game. And if you were not good enough in playing the game, you could go back. And this is why it is a game and a simulation. And you would do this loop again together to learn something. One question, which is also part of the summary, is for you to think about and ask your colleagues and your bosses, especially now in the crisis, that there is little money available and the tenge is devalued and people are running around with big shock what will happen. Is the question to develop the people skills and to develop leadership just something for the rich companies? Is it something only for when there is money available? Is leadership development and people skills really just a nice to have category? Is it only for the rich and the nice times that we invest in ourselves, in learning and developing ourselves? Or is it actually something which on the long run is going to be very, very important? I certainly reinvest my time and energy with Geneva Business School. I'm always having a great team of people who are building themselves. And I hope that they're out there in the world and they are using the flow and the knowledge in order to make themselves more efficient for the future. I hope this discussion around the flow and the leadership was interesting. We still have some time for chats and questions. I hope that this Professor Csíkszentmihalyi, like the Hungarian Rubik Cube, it's a Hungarian invention, is good to have out there in his books and his knowledge. And I hope that I was able to take you onto this little journey to think about the flow and to think about your own future and how to turn this into a different competitiveness in your company. I wish that the flow may be with you. At the end of the slides, you can still find some extensions of what I was talking to you about But now let's come back to the question and answers. Thank you. So I ask you now to please type down questions, but even better, switch on the camera and ask me directly what we are going to talk about. So, for example, I will ask Bota, how are you, Bota, and how did you like it? Almagul, how was it for you? Olzas, how do you do? Azat, I think. Zibek, Termilan, how do you do? Hello, Ruslan.
Mr. Buzady, if I may, hi, my name is Zibek Shagmardan, and I have unfortunately joined a bit late to your conversation, but your summary at the end really helped me to kind of grasp the whole idea, I hope. I think I'm in my mid-career right now, so I have 15 years of experience. So this is a very applicable, I would say, presentation for my personal development, and I really thank you for that. A question that I have, I guess, is similar to the one that you're asking at the end. So lots of companies, lots of very big companies are investing in this leadership in people. I personally, in this stage of my career, I see that there is a misalignment, so to speak, of developing young, I consider myself young still, of course, young professionals in their leadership rather than in their skills.
It has to do with two things, and I think you're lucky that I was 20 times in Kazakhstan in 4 years, because I meet many, especially in the state companies. I was even at Urao on a non-state company once. But there are two things I think happening in your environment. I assume that you are working in Kazakhstan. The first one is people are training techniques, negotiation technique, time management technique, and so on and so on. But this is not the heart. This is not the psychology inside you about thinking like Csikszentmihalyi wrote about, why do I do this? They think that by teaching people small tricks like, shortcuts on the keyboard, you will become a great author. No, you need a good screen, you need to have the shortcuts, but the screen is empty. You have to fill it from inside, and this is called leadership. The second thing I think you are experiencing, in my observation, that there are 3 levels in Kazakhstan in many companies. For historic reasons, the older, on the top of the hello, I recognize you now. So, I see you now, So, on the top, there are older managers. In their world and their socialization, how they grew up, it was very much state economy, planning, military, logic, machines, and so on. So from top down, telling what they have to do. In the younger sphere, the 3rd level, the young ones, they ask questions like, why should I do work here? I can't. It's like the dogs I have shown you in the photo. They say, but this is not good here. It's not good. And they go from one company to the other. They move around, and they go from ERG to Tauken Samruk, from Tauken Samruk to a private company, because the young ones are moving around and they want to get feedback. They want to have flow experience. They want to exercise the skills and have a vision. And in the middle is you. You are in this after 15 years here. And the people above you don't understand that you need to work with these people. They want you to do what they come up. And then it doesn't go fast enough because the environment is moving so fast in them outside. But for them, it is very strict and very nicely boxed as it used to be in the past. So that's why I think leadership development, finding people in Astana, Nur-Sultan, or in Almaty, in where you live locally, who have the same problem, is very, very important to start to speak with them the same language, the same difficulties, because you need to have allies around you, people around you who are going to help you to make understand this level that you are developing a team with your people, and you need different tools than just money or just authority, because these people will run away. So you fall down and you do the work instead of these, and they say, but why are you not following me? And you have to say, no, actually I'm here in the middle. I do my work both with you and with my team, but this relationship is different than this one we had years before. And you in the middle have difficulties, I think, with doing it well, because you have not been trained in this. You were given tools, techniques, but you have not been able to observe how to lead people, because the older generation has never seen it the new way. So that's why I recommend to associate yourself with others in your career age and speak with them. And normally MBA, by the way, is ideal for that. So because you apply your knowledge and you recombine it. Was this helpful for you?
Well, to be honest, yeah, thank you. Very interesting perspective. However, all my life I have worked for an international oil and gas company, and I never had any authoritarian bosses, so to speak. So I guess my question was mainly is addressing actually in a bit different angle, I would say. When you are trying to develop as a leader, you are trying to develop a person in their skill set. So they have to identify their own skills. That's my understanding. And I have, as a leader, I have to understand what's their skills in order for them to achieve the flow and be able to balance this
Yes.
Challenge and anxiety type of tasks that I give, right?
Jibek, I understand that you were lucky maybe to be already in a more modern type of work environment.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, I was more lucky in that sense, of course.
And not all of the oil companies are have this culture you just mentioned, but the fact also probably means that you are quite aware of your leadership skills, luckily for you. But most people don't know these. They are very vague on that. But the next level for you is, even if you know your skills pretty well and they have been measured or you are confident in this, it's to increase the intellectual complexity. So the other dimension, the challenge remains. And if you want to overcome your own motivational limitations, you have to think, what is it in my work which is so difficult? Oh, I can't do it. But what is the level below that, which is actually a challenge, so that you start to develop, enhance your skills even higher. And it is different type of skills. So by moving from one career level to the other, you manage all sorts of different types of complexity. So on the top of an organization, you manage actually your role in society, your role in big politics. So very different type of skills you would need on the top of an organization than you need in a functional role or even lower. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
I wrote the question before. Thank you very much for your interesting and informative presentation. I'm a PhD student and a trainer. I have my own master classes for students, so I'm just interested in leadership theme.
Yes.
My question is about what kind of practical tasks you can recommend, or maybe the name of these tasks or books where I can read about it for students or for the youth.
I prepared, for example, last week, a blog entry on Facebook, you can find it, but also my YouTube channel. It is how to give peer feedback conversations. I think young people, I teach also fifth-year students at the best business school here in Budapest, and they are very digital already. It means that they like to get an exercise, to calculate, maybe discuss in a group, and then get a quick result, good or not good. But they are not good at having conversations with each other about themselves. So one tool I would recommend to you is to check out, which is available publicly, tips on how you could actually arrange young people to talk with each other for half an hour. One person says, I have this difficulty. I have this pain in myself. I'm not sure what other people think. And the other person should be a peer, a friend, like a colleague, a good boss, helping the other person in a dialogue to develop the other person. And this is very, very difficult because the other person thinks, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. But it's actually called psychological intimacy, to be close to each other, open your vulnerability, and the other person should actually feel that in this dialogue you can actually start to lead and help the other person. So this is my recommendation to you with the young people, to have peer feedback conversations. I used to call it coaching, but they were afraid, oh, I'm not a coach, and what is this? So just call it peer feedback conversation for half an hour, and I do it with 3 of them or 4 of them in a group, and the 2 others are just observing, and I'm observing the 2 and help them if they get into difficulties. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Other persons, questions? Kanat, are you here?
Yes, Zoltan.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yes. How are things going at Tauken Samruk?
Some challenges after this coronavirus pandemic and after the world economic crisis, but we want to launch a transformation in soft skill side and the corporate culture and some of the parts of in corporate relations.
Yes.
We just work out our new program because we received the good opportunities and the good good things, I think, from quarantine period work in our company is working. So it's some challenges, but we believe that after quarantine and after pandemic and post-crisis, we will receive new relations and new frameworks of the corporate culture.
Yes.
So, and we will launch a new program, and we will prepare our corporate relations for this thing.
Yes. Well, thank you for being so optimistic, because you speak for many people and also nation-wide. So it is clear that the only hope we can have is, and you must have also, and I hear it in your voice, is that after this period, we need to recombine our activities. And it's not just economic recombination, but internally how the people are going to deal with each other, how they're going to lead with each other. I was mentioning, Kanat, that this whole idea of a positive psychology emerged in this Csikszentmihalyi after the Second World War in Italy, when everything was broken. It was, all the hopes of society and money and knowledge was irrelevant in a country where he didn't speak the language. And he was observing, why are some people enjoying the work of getting up in the morning and be effective in starting a small restaurant. So we can call this entrepreneurship, but psychologically this is the flow, and this is the energy which needs to be cultivated. Yes. And I'm very happy you mentioned about what you call soft skills. I think it is actually complex skills, because human beings, people are the most complex. So it's even more complicated than any other process. And this training of, the emotions, we have this here on this, here, the different colors, because there are 8 emotions. This is something very complex to learn and to detect as a leader. Unfortunately, in engineering companies, people are normally recruited because of the technical skills, engineering, financial skills. But when they move to the top of this, they have difficulties in creating this organizational culture, which I mentioned to you with the 3 levels. So they start to continue the routines, the systems, the reports, and not let this more interactive soft skills approach. Thank you very much. Let me help you if you need some help. Okay, anybody else who has a professional question or subject question?
Good day, Professor.
Hello.
Is it possible to hear me?
Yes. Da.
So I would like to ask you about a person who has lack of positive psychological capital. How to encourage this person to develop himself in this way?
Okay. Do you have this problem?
No, but my employees has this problem.
Yes.
They are very talented and intelligent, but however, they don't want to develop themselves.
Yes. I would start. So I want to show you this apathy here in the black zone. So very few people are really clinically in apathy for a long period. One possibility for you could be to show them this very simple matrix of skills and challenges, maybe the colorful one, and ask them, where do you think you are? So that they start to speak a little bit about themselves. Because your judgment, and it could be true that they are in apathy, but they don't want to admit this. Healthy people don't want to be in apathetic zones. So you start to ask them, but where are you energized? What kind of activities are you energized? And they say, it's outside of the world, outside of the work. It's not possible here. And then you start to speak a little bit about where these two worlds are so separate. Can it be overlapping? Could it be possible that small areas, so you have to start really from the small overlapping areas. And the way for doing this is to identify their skills. So first you ask them about the feelings, the emotions, and then second, you can start to ask them, which are the skills you use in the work? Because I can see that everything is super difficult for you. But which skills do you have? So the first dimension is the X and then the Y. So the second step would be to ask them about the skills so that they get a little bit more confident in and move out of the black zone. Do you think you can make this experiment?
I think yes, possible.
So ask them to identify where they are on this map. You can find this on the internet or on Flow, Google, whatever, and the book I recommend to read. And then ask them. And then when they have asked them, you ask them, but what are the dimensions of the skills you are actually applying? What are the moments where you feel happy? And then bring this increasingly into the company. Of course, nobody does this. It's me who does this work. People use the flow theory for developing pedagogies. Children, the people at the pedagogical institutes, they all know Csikszentmihalyi and flow very well. People in sports use this. So I have one GBS alumni who's an Olympic winner for Kazakhstan in Taekwondo, and he knew everything about flow from experience and from his training. But then he realized, you can apply this also for management. So that's why it is not natural, intuitive to think that happiness can come from work in the company, but that's the role of the leader to ask this and to discover this and to build this. Okay.